Are you ready to scale your business in a way that's aligned with your soul and profitable? I'm Casey Rossi, a business and leadership coach. I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 30 years and love business. I help conscious leaders increase their impact and optimize their lives. Join me each week for tips and deep conversations on cultivating confidence, increasing your visibility, elevating your vibration, and leading with purpose without burning out. Let's go. My guest today is Iva Paleckova. Iva is so inspirational. She is a single mom who went from food stamps to a 7-figure business with an infant in 18 months. She's originally from the Czech Republic and has so much to share. She gives us all the nitty-gritties of her journey and what it took to pivot and believe in herself. I know you're going to enjoy this episode, and there's some great advice, so listen till the end so you can implement it. We have an action step invitation, so definitely listen till the end, and you can always share your aha moments in the Women Developing Brilliance Facebook group. But for now, enjoy the show. Hey, Iva, welcome to the show.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I am really excited to dive in with you. I feel like we have a lot in common from just the brief chat that we've had pre-show. And so I'm really excited to hear more about you and your journey, what lights you up, how you want to close out 2021 strong and also ring in 2022. So I've got a ton of questions for you, but I first want to turn it over and if you want to let the listeners know a little bit about your journey, because I know that you went from being a single mom and food stamps all the way to a 7-figure female entrepreneur who's rocking it in her space. So if you wanted to share with us one of your strongest pivots in business, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think I want to bring you back into 2019 when I had to restart this business over. So before that, in 2019 and before what I was doing, my business was all offline based. I would go to different speaking opportunities. I would go to different female entrepreneurial organizations. I would deliver a talk, right? I would show up, do a talk, ask people to sign up for a consult. They would speak to me, I would close clients, and I would move on. And I honestly loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I was doing a lot of traveling. In 2019, I visited 30 different states and just doing,
amazing.
And I ended up getting an RV because I really, really love traveling and just, visiting different national parks and state parks and doing lots of meditating in between, doing lots of spiritual work, which is really important to me. And I had somebody join me on that journey. And, my partner at the time, it was really, really great time. We were writing books together. We had some coaching clients together. We had I had a business coaching practice, but then the spiritual coaching practice branch, and we were running that together. And it was really, really amazing, right? Like, this is 2019, pre-COVID. You can, everything is in person, right? Just really awesome. Until on July 1st, 2019, I found out that I was pregnant, which I was super excited about, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, after 10 years of trying, this is finally happening, right? And 4 days later, on July 5th, it was the last time I saw him. He literally disappeared.
Wow.
Went it was, I cannot even begin to tell you, I think some of the moms who are listening might get an idea what that was like, but it was heartbreak. It was shocking. And the first thing that came to my head, oh my gosh, who is the kind of person that gets abandoned after 3 days of pregnancy,
Wow.
And the whole guilt and shame of it to begin with, that was the first thing that I, had to deal with. And the heartbreak and the sadness and the, oh my gosh, what, and then this, okay, number one, I'm going to be a single mom. Number two, I don't have any family living in the US, right? My entire family is from Eastern Europe, so I don't have any relatives. Number three, I can't travel anymore because every time I try to sit behind the wheel, I get sick and I start throwing up, right? So you're like, okay, so speaking is over. I had to go and cancel 35 speaking engagements. I had to send all these emails and messages. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm not going to be able to show up because I can't get there without puking all day. I'm not driving there, right? And so now what happened, pivoting, right? Okay, I have to build my business online from here on out. And it was absolutely terrible, like terrible. Made all the mistakes you can imagine. First of all, we're going to launch the courses, right? I'm going to record this great course. I'm going to build a funnel, which is what I think everybody first tries to do, right? And we spent all the money we had on Facebook ads and my VA support. And 2 months later, I think this is like September and October. I'm not making this up. I just checked my bank account balance from October 2019. I was down to $700 in my bank account.
That's incredible. I can't even imagine what your emotional state was at that point.
Not pretty. Not pretty. Just not pretty. And it was this, oh my God, like, what do I do? Do I find a job? I'd wake up in the middle of the night and go apply for 130 jobs on Indeed because I had it like, a responsible parent should not be running their business. I should get a job, bring the money in. And I was this close to doing that.
Wow.
Right? This close to, I was about to get an offer to be a head of engineering, which is so not my thing, but I've run a restaurant. I've owned a restaurant in my past life. Right. So, but they're like, well, if you can manage a restaurant, you can manage our engineering department. So I was going to take the job, but there was like this, no. So not my purpose. So not my passion. My team will tell you, I do not like tech. It's just like, that's so not my thing. Like, why, I was very close to doing that. And we decided to have the biggest pivot and biggest mindset shift. And I know you talk quite a bit about mindset shifts and, letting go of perfectionism and things like that. And it's one of the things that I had to go move through. And I said, the things that worked in an offline world, they worked for a reason. I would show up, I would connect with people, I would deliver value, and then people would sign up and work with me. Right.
I love that. I love that you brought it all the way back to basics. And I think that so many times, one, we're looking outside for the proper framework or the perfect, 1, 2, 3 system that someone has tried, and it may very well have worked for them. And like you said, I think most entrepreneurs are trying to do all the things because they have this fear of missing out. So it's like, let me do the evergreen thing. Let me build a funnel. No, let me do a membership site. No, let me do an online course and the whole thing. So I really want to lift you up for taking a pause, stepping back and saying, wait, I had success. Let me just breathe into what that was for me. What was it that worked? So yeah, continue on. I'm digging the story.
Yeah. And it went up from there. It was not always easy, but we literally went from, $700 in my bank account to having our first $1 million quarter earlier this year.
Congratulations.
And it was a journey that, I can share as much as I can with you, but, it wasn't always easy. There's a lot of things that I had to let go of, how things would look like. But I said, when I decided, there was a day, I still remember this, like I was so low. I went do you know what WIC is? It's like a food stamps for pregnant mothers. So I'm like literally applying for WIC and figuring out how am I going to get the child support when, the biological father literally fled the country, It's nowhere to be found, blocked me on all social media, like no support, no money. What am I doing? And then I said, you know what? If I can figure this out, this impossible situation, then, if I can figure it out, anybody can,
And you figured it out quickly. I mean, it's really astonishing that it's just literally been a little bit over 2 years, right? From that moment in 2019 in the summer to now, to be hitting those kind of numbers and figures is quite amazing. That being said, I do feel that because you traversed the territory yourself, you went over those rocky roads, you're the best person to help people It's not just academic knowledge. It's not just theory. And I think that that's something to really point out, especially now. I don't know about you, Eva, but what I've seen is like all of a sudden there's tons of business coaches online. All of a sudden there's tons of life coaches online. And I think that it's for the consumer. And I've seen and heard from women that have gotten burned from investing in a high ticket offer.
Yeah.
With someone that has like a glossy website, awesome. But where's the experience and where are the results that back that up? So I love the fact that you're sharing the nitty gritty details of your story, because it's like, holy crap, to go from food stamps to 7 figures and to have the moxie to not only like, I feel like listening to part of your story, you've had moxie all along. You can kind of tell that even with your cool haircut, like, you're sassy, you're not in the box. Right. So I feel like even having dozens and dozens of speaking gigs in the pipeline prior to this pivot just shows your tenacity, but then also to be like, hey, I'm going to go all in on this and shift. And then to get that kind of results, it's very incredible. So I do want to point out those qualities of perseverance and being like unafraid and like just pouring your whole self into your goal.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I would not say I was unafraid. I will tell you, there were night sweats and there were terrors because I was living in Pueblo, Colorado, which is not a place you want to live in. Colorado. Colorado is a beautiful state, but Pueblo is where you go, when you cannot afford the rent in Boulder, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm there and I'm like, how am I going to provide for my newborn, And she's on the way. And it's like, when you're in the situation, you have to say, I almost had to be religious about my mindset. Mm-hmm. It was like, I remember I went to the Walmart in Pueblo and I got this whiteboard, 8.5 by 11. I write 7. It's so cheesy, right? 7-figure single happy mom on this. And I put it in the shower. So I'm forced to stare at it when I'm doing my hair conditioning treatment. Right. And I said, I'm going to, instead of, oh my God, I have to spend money on this or that. It's like, I get to spend money on this, right? I've done things before. I can do this. Every single day, gratitude 8 times a day. I was religious about it, right?
Nice.
I was religious. And, it's not what I practice now. My mindset practice have switched dramatically because now it's more about releasing and letting go and creating the next version of who I am, right? But at the beginning, when you're digging yourself out of a hole, then you got to go like, oh my gosh, like hardcore gratitude. I'm going to flip myself out of this, like no matter what, right? And then, and then what most entrepreneurs, what I see them doing, and I'm sure you see the same thing, there's so much hiding. There's so much spaghetti throwing, like you said, right? Like do the course. Oh, never mind. Do the membership. Never mind. And do the next thing. And then get on TikTok and get on this and get on that. Oh, wait, that didn't work. We actually said, we're just going to stick to one thing, do it over and over and over. We started doing virtual retreats, which was really fun. I was terrible at it at the beginning, right? I had some speaking experience, but online, oh my God, I was terrified to go live for the first time. Like, what if nobody watches? What if nobody comments? What's going to happen? I'm going to look totally dumb on camera. And we started doing retreats on Zoom. And the first one did not go well, right? We closed 3K in revenue. Which was like, okay, that's not great for a business coach, right? I was one of those people, right? Oh, I don't know, blind leading the blind a little bit, quite frankly. I had business experience in the past, right? But not with this. So it was a little bit like.
Absolutely. And we all start somewhere. So caveat to that statement, you have to start somewhere. And I think it goes back to bringing your full self and showing up in the integrity, being really, open about where you are and then failing fast, so you can iterate and improve it. So for listeners that maybe have never done a virtual retreat before, if you could expand a little bit on that, maybe share some of your top tips. I'm even curious about one of your biggest blunders when you first started doing virtual retreats. But if we have a female entrepreneur that's listening and going, gosh, I've never done that. That's kind of interesting, but I have no idea how to go about it. Could you share some of your top tips?
Yeah, of course. In a nutshell, we have tried anything. We started with like 10-day live events, which I did not like. It was too much. Speaking of like blenders, we have had like our Facebook accounts shut down to where I couldn't even go live or I couldn't contact anybody. We have had, oh my gosh, so many things happening. I can't even tell you, right? Internet connection issues, like you name it. But the nature of it being like a live event or a Zoom event is that people kind of know, that's what's going to happen. I always tell them on day one, hey, this is live, so things are going to happen. And, you might hear a baby screaming in the background. I might take a break because I have to go be with Lexi. My daughter is now 21 months old, right? Wow. But when we first started, it was not a huge success, but we said, I'm not that great at teaching online. I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but I'm going to do it until I figure it out. Right. So our second retreat was 21K. And that was a week and a half before Lexi was born. And we launched our group program out of it. Literally the best decision of my life to launch a group coaching program, because I don't know how I would ever do this, as a single mom to a toddler now, without, running a group coaching practice. It would just not be possible. Right. And then we had a 42 and then 80, 84. And then we had some dips, but we did them every 8 weeks, like just clockwork, every 8 weeks. And then I take a week off after, now it's less retreats and more breaks, but it's about what it was. And, our biggest one to date has been about 516 revenue. So
that's amazing. How do you structure your virtual retreats?
Yeah. So, it just depends on the retreat, but typically we teach for 7 days. I show up and I teach on camera. Sometimes it's people on my team teaching as well, teaching on their expertise, but most of the times it's me, and just go and teach for 45 minutes. Sometimes I go longer. I do a lot of experiential stuff, right? Yeah. Because, I'm not doing the next one till January, but I really want to add some breath work and some emotional release, because I found that I can tell people all day long what to do. And as you know, they're going to not do it. They're going to fall into their perfectionism. They're going to find the reasons and the ways. And it's just in the human nature. So for me, it's like 80% of the emotional work and the mindset work so that they actually can, right?
Absolutely. So, it's all about the experience. And I think that to your point, that's one of the pitfalls that we have to be so careful, not only personally, but I think collectively, is not over consuming the theory, but putting it into practice, having an experience, and embodying it. So if we have a listener that's like, okay, 7 days of teaching, that sounds similar to maybe like a 5-day Facebook challenge. What do you say to that? What are the similarities? What are the differences between a 3, 5, 7, 10-day Facebook challenge versus a virtual retreat?
Yeah. So it really, we tried all the formats, anything between like 10 days to like down to 20 minutes, and 5 days and 8 days and 2.5 days. So we have tried it all. And this is really my favorite because it gives me enough time to really bring people into an experience, and also just have time to develop those relationships where people actually move somewhere with it, Because typically when we did 2.5 day and 5 day, it was like, oh my gosh, it's over. What happened? And I didn't even feel connected to the group, and that was big for me because like, I like to feel connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with what I'm assuming is with the 5 day or the 7 or whatever day it is, when you're looking at a Facebook challenge, typically you see those as a non-paid event. With a virtual retreat, is there an investment for the participant?
Yeah. So sometimes, most of the times we don't. We have played with the idea, and I've done some paid workshops in the past. And, there's some pros and cons, people tell you, if you don't ask people to pay, then they won't commit. And there's some truth to it. But here's the thing with paid events right now, what happens is that you have to get people into it. And right now, what's going on with the online space is that, with cost per lead, I don't know if you've been watching what's going on with Facebook, right? But the cost per lead, what we used to pay like $5 to $8 cost per lead right now is $100, $200 cost per lead, and people's accounts get shut down. So in order for you to try to get people to register into a paid event, you're going to spend so much money. You're not going to make any money on it, right?
Yeah, that's such a good tip. I really want to underscore that. That's the times have changed, and what used to work even a year ago is different right now with paid advertising. So I appreciate that. That's so valuable for people to learn from the stumblings, that you've had, and like, where are you now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. You talk a lot about not relying solely on willpower, and I would love to hear you expand on that concept.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. So the funny thing, as I started growing my company, I realized, one thing, and I think you already know this and everybody knows this, like getting to 7 figures, right? You think that you're going to get there, you're going to be happy, right? And that's going to be it. Like, if I achieve this one thing, then that's what's going to make me happy, right? The problem with that is that if you don't know who you are, and if you don't have stuff processed, then 7 figures or multi 7 figures just brings more problems, right? It just brings different set of problems. So what happens as you scale is that now you have more clients, and clients are not always happy, right? Clients are there to have problems, right? To bring you a set of problems. You have a team, and your team isn't always happy, right? And so you are just dealing with just a whole another animal. And what people think is, okay, if I just make it to multi 6 or 6 or 7 or whatever, then things are going to be awesome. And I'm just going to have a breath of relief, and it's just going to be easy. And it's the opposite of that, right? So, what I tell people is that, if you want to build a 7-figure practice, you need to expand your capacity, your emotional safety with what's going on in your business in order to be able to be there comfortably. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And so people think, at the beginning, when I was starting my business coaching practice, I had a capacity for maybe 3 clients, right? Mm-hmm. If you gave me 100 clients, I would be like, oh my gosh, I'd be texting them at 2 a.m. being anxious over, are they getting the results? Are they not getting the results? What's happening? The guilt and the shame that they're, when they're struggling or whatever it is. Right. So what we need to realize is that if you want to build a practice that is 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x, then where you're at right now, you have to have the emotional capacity to face it. Right. And this is where people, make many, many mistakes going into the funnel routes, going into, I'm just going to run a bunch of ads and pre-recorded courses, because that does not increase ever anybody's capacity. Mm-hmm. You're just throwing stuff on the wall, throwing some content stuff on the wall. It's never going to grow you. Right. So, when people ask like, okay, how could I grow myself faster? I tell them, go to what's really, really emotionally difficult. Do those things first, because it's going to grow you like crazy. And people don't want to hear that, right? Mm-hmm. Who don't want to do that. Like, they don't want to do a podcast, right? Because it's scary. They don't want to be a guest on a podcast. They don't have other people come on their podcast because that's emotionally unsafe, right? They don't want to go live on Facebook. They don't want to do retreats. They want to, put some content up over the wall, put it on Instagram and hope that something's going to happen, right? That's
such a brilliant distinction, Iva. I want to just let you know that, because in the first scenario that you talked about, as far as building a funnel, building a course, slapping up a Facebook ad, where are you? Where's your authentic personality? Where's the connection? Where's the relationship that you were talking about earlier? And it really goes back to when you literally analyzed what worked before in my offline business. And it was showing up, having human connection and providing value. So I love that you overlaid your past experiences into your new pivot. And that's where you saw success again, which is absolutely incredible. And it is scary. It's scary to go into that emotional space. And I agree with you that that is what expands us personally. That's where we see the most personal and spiritual development. And then we bring ourselves with us wherever we go. So of course, our business is going to reflect that growth. Love that. Also, circling back to a couple of the things that you did personally to pull yourself out of that hole, what I heard from you was visioning and gratitude. And I know a lot of listeners right now are experiencing burnout and being fried, and maybe to some extent a little bit of hopelessness, because it's like, holy shit, it's November 1st. I've got 2 months left of this year. How am I going to hit my goals? And I think they're also a little fried on even content creation if they're hearing crickets, or like you said, if they've put out an offer, but they're not really filling those seats. I'm wondering what advice you can give those listeners to get reignited with their business.
Yeah. So 2 parts to this, right? So number one, and I'm going to be a little bit woo on you for a second. So the point of a business is not to accumulate, not to save for 401k, right? Not to buy a second retreat house or a second, vacation house or whatever, although that's all fine, right? The point of business is the same as point in life in general, and that is to grow you, right? For you to transcend, for you to let go of anything that is not you, anything that's holding you back, right? So when you say things like, people are feeling hopeless, people are feeling disappointed, right? And that's the thing. That's exactly what we need to experience and move through and surrender in order to become the next level of person. I've had so many times this year, even, and last year, and especially in 2019, when I felt totally hopeless, right? When I felt so much just, oh my gosh, why is this happening? What's happening? Why is nobody responding to this? The disappointment, right? And there's 2 kinds of people. There's people who are so afraid of the emotion of disappointment, right? And the feeling of, oh my gosh, I failed yet another launch, that they just won't, right? They will retreat and they will shut down and their business will go away, right? Because it's constant heartbreak. It doesn't matter where you're at in your business, right? At the beginning, it's all about getting the first client or second client, fifth client, at the higher levels, it's about, your clients renewing or not renewing. It's about, now you're not dealing with 10 people on Zoom, you're dealing with 300 people on Zoom, right? And the disappointments that go with that, the emotional stuff that you go through is different at every level. But what's really important is look at it this way, like, okay, your business is giving you this, at the beginning, it's going to be crickets. Or maybe some negative feedback, or you'll reach out to somebody and they'll snap back or something, they're like, oh, don't bother me with your DMs or whatever it is. Right. And it's exactly what you need to sit with and to process through it in order to transmute that emotion and let go of it for good, so you can move to the next frequency as a business owner. Does that make sense?
100%. I'm loving this gorgeous wisdom. Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, most of our lives, what we do is that we try to avoid experiencing certain emotions, right? We will do anything we can to not experience fear, to not experience disappointment, to not experience uncertainty, which is one of the scariest things for entrepreneurs. They just can't be with it, but you never know, right? You do a launch, I don't know. Am I going to get 1 client or 0 or 30? I have no idea, right? There's uncertainty. There is security, right? That we need to let go of attachment to as well, right? And all the feelings, but we do all these things to not feel these feelings. And what I tell people, the resilience, what resilience actually is the opposite. It's not having these experiences, because they don't go away, right? There's always going to be difficult emotions. But what resilience is the ability to actually be with those feelings, which is nothing other than sensations.
Exactly. It's presencing. And to your point, when you step into that space of unknown, uncertainty, and fear, that is where the gold lies. That's when we expand our capacity, like you said. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous wisdom. You can feel the truth in your words, which I so appreciate, because there is that sense of walking the talk, right? This isn't lip service. This is actually putting your feet to the hot coals and walking that yourself, and then sharing what you've learned and encouraging other people to have that experience, because they can get motivated by hearing your story. They can get inspired by seeing you traverse the tough terrain, but they will not have personal transformation unless they actually walk on those hot coals themselves.
Exactly. You will not have transformation out of listening to content and trainings. You actually have to be willing to step through the difficult stuff, be willing to feel it all. You can't control it all. You have to surrender at some point, take the action, but then trust, right? You'll have no certainty, no security, no perfect security in your business, right? You're never going to know how it's going to land. We don't want to be judged. We always, have this like, oh, I hope people like it. And you don't know how that's going to turn out either, right? I've had a retreat, ask me about retreat stuff. I remember the first time we had a larger group on Zoom on day one of the retreat. I think it was like 150, 200 people. And it was just, the chat was like too much to almost look at. But then I saw this one thing in the chat. And I was on day one and I'm introducing myself and I'm sharing my story and, and trying to get people commit to showing up the whole week and whatever we have. Took me about 10 minutes, right? And somebody puts in the chat, like, oh my God, why is she talking about herself for so long?
Oh, wow.
Right. And it's stuff like that. And you're on Zoom in front of so many people and you're like, oh my gosh. And sometimes I'll get like direct messages. Like sometimes people don't put it publicly, but they'll like send you stuff like that. Right. And if I did that, like even months before that, I swear I would cry, but it's like, yeah, those things will happen. And it's all so just you can move through it and you can know you can do it. Right. And I don't want to scare people because growing your business and building your business is such an amazing journey too, because who you get to be when you clear all these things. Now, I teach 6-7 hours a week in my program. I literally never have to prepare. I just talk off the cuff. I'm so clear, like my connection is so clear that I know what to say, when to say, how to say it to make a difference with my clients. I don't have to prepare for my podcasts or for, retreats that I'm leading. Right. So when you move through this stuff emotionally, it clears up so much. And, where we're now in life is also, bring it back to full circle. Right. We live in Costa Rica. I work 4 days a week. We have done so much traveling. I have a full-time nanny, which you might have heard her cooking. And I'm like, hey, stop peeling the eggs right now. We're doing a podcast interview. Right.
Yeah. So, but that's real life. And I love it. And it just shows when you're tapped in, when you continue to show up for yourself and do the work. I love the aspect that I heard from you as far as surrendering into success. Keep showing up, but let go of the attachment. Such a beautiful message. How can people learn more about you and Leaders Break Free?
Oh, thank you so much for the question. So number one, Leaders Break Free podcast. We don't have any retreats right now because we're taking a break from launching, but we do have one coming up on January 10th. So I'm going to send you the link so it can go in a podcast notes, but that's going to be, we're only going to be doing 2 next year. And this is one of them. It's going to be amazing for anybody who is listening to this and they're inspired by it. Please come and be part of it. It's free, as you know, and you'll get to meet a whole bunch of entrepreneurs just like you and do the work with us. And we're going to be mapping out the entire 2022 together. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Awesome. I'll definitely add the link in the show notes. That's amazing. You shared some actionable tips and a lot of inspiration from your personal story. If you wanted to drop just one more piece of bright light wisdom before we wrap up, what would it be?
Let me see if I can think of something. I don't think I'm going to share anything new, but I want to bring back to what I always tell people. If you want to grow your business fast, go to what's hard. And I'm not talking about go to what's hard work, right? Don't go and work 60-hour work weeks, because that's not what I'm talking about. But go to what scares you the most, right? Do that first. Like, I see people being so busy with the 99 things and checking all their boxes, right? And that's their safety, right? If I can keep myself busy and have my spreadsheet and check my boxes and do this, and the other, they think that it's going to lead somewhere. It usually doesn't. It's the one thing that you are scared that you're avoiding the most, whether it's reaching out to the past client and asking for a call, or asking for the next referral, or going live, or, hiring your first VA, whatever that thing is. And if you're listening to this, what that thing is. Right?
Yes.
We all know what that thing is for us.
It comes up immediately front and center in your mind. So I love that. And I really want to invite the listeners to take action on your bright light wisdom and pause for a moment and really be honest with yourself. Let that one thing bubble up front and center in your mind and commit to yourself to take action so you can experience leveling up and realizing that when you move towards it, that's where your biggest gains are going to be personally and in business. Awesome. Iva, thank you so, so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Until we connect again, my friend, breathe joy.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you caught a spark of inspiration from my wonderful guest, Iva. If so, you can head on over to lovethepodcast.com/brilliance to leave your rating or review. I also wanted to share some feedback that came through from Chadettem from the US. They said 5 stars, my gem of the week. Impactful, empowering conversations. Listening to Casey every week gives me the jolt I need during downtime or mundane activities to regroup and take inventory of all that's going on. Especially with all that's going on, thank you, Casey, for your thoughtful questions, remarkable insight, and most importantly, your authenticity. Keep it up. Wow. Thank you so much. That literally gives me this really full feeling. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share. And if you want to share, I would love to hear what you have to say. Head on over to lovethepodcast.com/brilliance. Until next week, my friend, breathe joy.